Item 10 is a discussion and update with possible action on the Pinal County 2022 primary election processes, handling, follow-up, and action. Mr. Volkmer. Oh, and I'm sorry, I have to mention that Virginia Ross will be should be in telephonically on this item.
Yes, Chairman. Virginia?
Yes.
There we are. Please
so, proceed. Chairman, with your permission, really this is designed to be an update for the board and the community at large. Since we last met last week, there's been some fairly significant changes, and I think everybody needs to be made aware of those. I guess I would begin with there has been a number of calls for an investigation of some sort. I think it's vital that we sort of define some terms. An investigation is typically, you think of like a criminal investigation. What we're looking at doing, at least initially, is what we're calling an administrative review. The administrative review would lead to a report, at least this is what we're proposing, that would be available to the board and ultimately, with the board's permission, made available to the public. The investigation portion, we're really limiting that term for any potential criminal liability. At this point, we've not found anything that would suggest that that exists, but I know that I've spoken with our sheriff, Mark Lamb, and his team. If ultimately there is a belief that there's any kind of criminal action afoot, they stand ready, willing, and able to do any criminal investigation. But for the administrative review portion, we really don't want law enforcement doing that portion of it. It's not that they're not skilled, it's not that they're not talented, but when a uniformed cop sits down and asks you questions, people tend to get very, very nervous, and they tend to not want to answer any questions. Instead, what we believe a better process to do is to actually work with an outside law firm, which we've been in communication with throughout, starting clear back to the 63,000 ballot issue, and work with them to hire an elections expert. That elections expert is going to do this administrative review, and what we anticipate getting out of this is what went wrong, why it went wrong, and then what can we do to make sure that this does not happen again. Now, we do have a particular elections expert that has been identified. We're currently in negotiations with this individual. I know we've spoken with Ms. Ross and Ms. Lewis both. They are aware of this individual. They've worked with this individual before. I will tell you it's a gentleman. He has, I believe, almost 30 years of being an election director in multiple jurisdictions. He's actually had an investigation done similar to this, or an administrative review done, so he's familiar with what we're looking for and what we really need. Our intention is to engage with this individual very, very shortly. Obviously, we don't have a ton of time till our next election. This isn't something that we're, an FBI investigation that we're looking, 24 to 30 months out. We're actually looking at, hopefully in very short order, within the next 30 to 60 days, having a report that we can present to this board. Just trying to make sure that I sort of cover all of our bases. I can tell you that since this, I guess, Miss Virginia Ross's appointment as the elections director, and then this board's appointment of Miss Lewis as the recorder, they've been working like banshees. There's no way to describe it. I mean, you're talking 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, processing ballots. There were a number of shortcomings that were identified immediately when they came in. They were able to identify those shortcomings. They were able to address those shortcomings. And when they're doing all of this, they're also pulling all kinds of information that my office has been requesting, because we know this administrative review is coming forward, so we're starting to gather the information to speed the process up. So they've been identifying all the impacted precincts. They've really been running two jobs at the same time, and I really think it's important that the public and this board know how hard both Ms. Ross and Ms. Lewis have really been working. They've been absolute champions for this county, and everybody should be quite proud. I think, my opinion, again, not as a county attorney, but as just Kent, that the decision that this board made to act quickly and swiftly was vital. I am confident as I sit here now putting my county attorney hat back on, if you would have waited another week or 2 weeks, we would not be in the position we're in right now. This is scheduled as a possible action item. We were, I think, naively hoping that perhaps we would have been able to actually bring forward the final votes in the final ballot so you could do your canvass today. That's not possible, so there's really not an action item to take today, but that is scheduled for Friday. So we will be back before you on Friday where we will be asking the board to go ahead and canvass. With that, I'll really stand for questions. I mean, I know Supervisor Surdy has got a number of questions. I know we've spoken on numerous occasions, so it may be easier if we just have a dialogue at this point.
Okay. Supervisor Surdy, you have a question, comment?
Well, I do. I just want to remind everybody and those watching online that next Wednesday, you mentioned over and over the shortcomings that they're finding. We need to be transparent on that and let everybody know what they are finding. And also, I think there's probably some things that happened that they're not aware of, we're not aware of. So we do want to hear from the poll workers, people that were turned away, et cetera. And next Wednesday, we weren't even scheduled to have a meeting, but we're going to have this special meeting. None of this other boring county business on it, just this. So starting at 9:30, we'll just go right into this. And I think we'll all come out of that knowing a lot more than we even know today. And I also think that you have some solutions that we're going to be rolling out next week as well.
Correct.
So,
Chair, if I can respond, just to give Supervisor Surdy's comments some context. If everybody recalls, we were here last Wednesday. There was a press conference. You took a break about 1:30. At that time, there were about 49,000 total votes that had been tabulated, and we were told there was only 8,000 left to tabulate. We're at almost 80,000. Ms. Ross was immediately able to come in and say, no, you've got to count these, you've got to count these, you've got to count these. Nothing wrong, nothing irregular, but there was just information that was not being properly provided to the people that needed to know, the people that were speaking with you, that were speaking with the public. I would encourage that anybody that's following, Ms. Ross and her team were doing updates, I think, 2 or 3 times a day. These are how many ballots are remaining. These are the types of ballots that are remaining, and the information has been continually being updated. Those are the type of things that we did not know last Wednesday that have materially changed. And again, my belief is had Ms. Ross not been appointed, had not someone who understood the process and where everything is located and how the polling books work and all of that not been there, we would have been in a very serious spot. I am confident that with Ms. Ross and Ms. Lewis at the helm, things are being done properly. In fact, I had conversations with county management today regarding all the provisional ballots and the processes that went through. And frankly, their diligence is a testament to the character of both of those women.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Supervisor Goodman?
I do have some more.
Supervisor?
I'm good. No, that's some good information, and thank you for next week. This will be good. Thank you.
Supervisor Kavanaugh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Volkmer, you said that the sheriff's office stands ready to conduct a criminal investigation. Is there any indication whatsoever that anything criminal occurred?
Thank you, Supervisor. Chair, to the best of our understanding at this point, it appears that it was incompetence as opposed to criminal intent. However, if this board recalls, there were very specific allegations that were made by some of the poll workers and some of the people that we are currently exploring. If some of those allegations bared fruit, it is possible, but at this point we have not seen anything to suggest that there is criminal intent, but that's why we're bringing the outside person out. Just quite candidly, this is outside of the expertise of myself and my office. This is outside of the expertise of the people that are typically in here, so we're bringing a true expert in that will be able to essentially, they're not going to be able to determine that there's criminal, but they'll determine that this is so far afield that a criminal investigation would be warranted.
Could be.
But as we sit here right now, I cannot say that that is necessary, but I will again say that I've spoken with the sheriff and they're ready as soon as we give them any information if deemed warranted.
Thank you.
Supervisor Surdy?
So we're going to be back here on Friday, and I imagine you're going to explain it all then. But legally, the repercussions of not accepting the canvas, explain what it is we would be doing, because I've had a lot of citizens say, you can't accept this. Explain the whole process on that and what it actually means. Because my first initial after the day after, I said, I'm not going to accept these results. So can you explain, yes or no, what happens if we don't? Are we even really accepting anything? So it's very confusing still, and I think if we don't address this, we're going to have more questions.
That's a very complicated question. It seems like it should be simple, and it's not. First, we have to distinguish between the municipal ballots and the municipal local elections races and the other races. This board plays no role in canvassing or certifying the municipal races. That is up to the individual municipalities and the individual towns and cities. They're the ones that canvass their own results. We don't do anything with those. We canvass all of the county, state, federal, all of those elections. I will tell this board, and this is always not a comfortable conversation, but our legal analysis is you have no choice but to canvass. It is what's deemed a ministerial duty, meaning you have to. It's a shall. As long as X, Y, and Z are done, there's not, hey, I don't think this is right. You are statutorily compelled to do so. If you don't, I don't know what would happen. What would likely happen, again, speaking off the cuff, is a citizen would probably come forward, or more likely a candidate would come forward, and they would probably initiate a suit in which the court would compel you legally to canvass. Because it's not a, hey, we think this is fair. When you canvass, it isn't your signing off saying, hey, we think this was a great election, we are perfect. It is a ministerial duty because of your role as the Board of Supervisors. Statutorily, you're required to canvass it, but you're not given the authority to say yay or nay. It is a shall. It is a no discretion. You must do it. To not do so would be in violation of state statute, and I don't know that it would subject you to criminal prosecution, but I don't know. That's something that we're currently evaluating. I can tell you that our local municipalities are evaluating the same thing because this board's not the only one that has this concern. I've spoken with local council for some of our city's municipalities, and the city councils and town councils are asking the same thing. Our analysis has been consistent that it's ministerial at this point, meaning you don't have the discretion not to.
So next Wednesday, there's going to be more folks here that aren't here and more folks probably watching. So you may well have to revisit that statement you just made and explain it once more.
Chair, Vice Chair, just so you're clear, the canvassing, though, is actually scheduled for Friday.
Right, but Wednesday is that's when more people will. Not everybody watches every minute of these meetings, so.
They don't? What?
I understand. I just wanted to make sure
Chair.
By the time we come Wednesday, in all likelihood, it would be canvassed, provided that Virginia and her team is able to finalize and get the information to you. We get the 24 hours notice, et cetera.
Supervisor Goodman.
Yes, and I appreciate it. But I have a question, Kent, and I don't expect an answer now, but between now and Friday, maybe you can help me out on this one. And I would imagine there's a lot of people who are listening who probably have the same question. It's almost like we're rubber stamping then something that may or may not be correct. And it's almost like a rubber stamp that legislatively we have to do. I don't get that. I don't understand that. And so I know it's probably a question that you can't answer right now, but I'd like a further explanation as to why it's set to even that we have to canvass at any point if it's just going to be a rubber stamp of some type.
Go ahead.
Chair, again, it's Supervisor Goodman. It's a very complicated issue. What I want to read to you just very briefly is really what canvassing is, so we're all kind of talking about the same thing. The purpose of the canvass is to officially certify the election. The canvass includes vote totals for all races tabulated by voting equipment, including early ballots, regular ballots, and provisional ballots, and write-in votes. So what you're doing is saying this is the total number certifying. These are the total number of votes that were cast. The Board of Supervisors has a, quote, non-discretionary duty to canvass the returns as provided by the county recorder or other officer in charge of elections, and has, quote, no authority to change vote totals or reject the election results. That is what is in the elections manual and in statute. So you're asking me to explain essentially the unexplainable. Unfortunately, we're always obligated to do certain things just as a matter of fact, and that's why there's that term called ministerial act, it really is a rubber stamp in this case, as long as the votes are accurate. And then I would add that the Secretary of State, after we canvass and certify, the Secretary of State does look at it, and that would not prohibit a potential challenge. Obviously, we're hoping not to see a challenge, but it would not prohibit somebody from challenging the ultimate results where the fairness of potentially the election could be challenged at a different time. You're just saying, hey, these are all the votes that were cast, and these are the tabulation of those results.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Supervisor Goodman?
It helps a little bit. I still, because it does have to do with whether or not these votes, all the votes that got in were actually counted. That's some of the questions that I know some of the people that are out there. But then again, I like the distinction of what you said earlier. We're not canvassing the municipalities. We're only canvassing what the county's election and the state and federal elections were all about, not what the municipalities. That's up to them to do that.
Okay.
So, just a better understanding of it for the public is really what needs to happen. So, thank you.
Mr. Keller, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to add something, that Kent was trying to get to at this point. The purpose also of the canvass is you need to have that done before any candidate could go ahead and bring a challenge to those numbers, whether it is someone who has a write-in in a municipal election. It's not until it's been canvassed that someone can then bring a challenge to those numbers in court to say, I want to recount. So, that is one of the other essences of why you need to canvass and why it's a ministerial duty, is to get to that next point. Should any candidate want to go ahead and challenge his numbers, or whether XYZ person won or not?
Makes sense.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
No, that helps out a lot, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Kavanaugh, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Volkmer, anything else?
The only thing I would really ask for the board is if the board collectively has concerns regarding bringing in an outside person, and a professional and expert to do the sort of after-action report that we were discussing, please tell us now. I will tell you it's not cheap. You have to bring somebody in that has the skill. We are working with outside counsel. Again, it's outside of our direct skill set, and quite frankly, I think we need an outside set of eyes. So there's no allegation or suggestion that we're somehow trying to insulate the county or to try and put a shine on things to make it look as good as possible, because that's my responsibility as the county attorney. We believe, and I believe, that this is the most transparent and the most appropriate way to proceed forward. But if this board's not okay with it, I would ask you to sort of speak up now so we don't get too far down that path.
I think it's good for the public to see that we're stepping aside. That's it. So any other comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. See you very soon, I'm sure. Or before. All right. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.